Now down here it says the Femes are families of Adashi adepts who completed Christ Star Ascension to Adashi 3 and to become Christ Stars. They reside in individuation when they choose within the deity planes and interact on service missions with external creation. When on Christic service missions, they incarnate directly from the deep planes in tantric and fontric twin sets and ascend to the deep planes following each chosen twin incarnation, which means they don't have to go through a full cycle of, like, once you're out in the matrix, you have to keep going through a cycle of your 1,728 cells before you can pull yourself together and ascend out again. They can go back and forth in each lifetime because they have the coding from picking up all of the coding from the matrix that they got the first time they did the ascension. So even if they choose to die bodies this time, they can go back into the deity planes without having to do the whole external creation thing from that point on in evolution. So they can evolve, within the inner plane structure. Now this gets kind of interesting. When incarnating as tantric and fontric twin sets, the magnetic charge, female, and sometimes it's a male body, but it's running the magnetics. So it doesn't, just because the gender on the outside is not necessarily what the reality of energy that's running in the body is, and it's the reality of energy that determines whether one is that female or male. But the one that's magnetic, the female, is called a Yoshi, and the male, the positive electrical one, is called an Aden. The Yoshi, and these are like role names, actually, as far as the roles that they play out. Sorry, in quantum with each other. The Yoshi keeps her Christ Star chamber open by incarnating the required minimum of 66% of her quantum. So whatever the quantum is that they as one being are choosing to come in as a tantric set, and they have, let's say, 100% of the quantum of them will go with one and 100 will go with the other. So they each have 100% of themselves, and so they have 200% quantum when you put them together, right? So they do birth in to be equal, but they can't just both come in with 100% of their quantum. So it starts with the one who carries the codes that counterclockwise spiral back into the ascension as far as the male electrical anchors and spreads outward, right? And the female draws in and spirals back up. So that it's the ascension current and the expression current, really. The male is doing the down and express electrical, and the female is doing the pull it together and take it home and bring it up, right, and into ascension. So that's why it was they use the format where the female will come in and hold the Christ Star line. So she's got an active upflow to the Christ Star consciousness, so she can communicate with their self, because it's they're both the Christ Star. But he will not be able to remember yet because he only has 33% of his quantum online in his body. The rest of it stays in his hydroacoustic body and does the bilocation, where it goes back and forth from hanging out, but he's conscious but not in the body. He's conscious of the body and conscious of the part of himself that doesn't know that part of himself is there yet. So it's an interesting way to incarnate. It's a bit different than what people that are just doing the regular, I'm incarnating outward into my just evolution cycle do. And there's a whole exchange where that part of the Aden, the male on the ground that only, on the ground here, that only has 33% of his quantum online, conscious in the body. The rest is with him. It's part of his cellular, body pattern, but it can be in more than one place at once. It can split itself and go to the deity planes and go back and forth. That's the part that approaches the Yoshi in the deity planes, because she can go back and forth because she's got her Christ Star line open. And she ends up meeting him there. He wakes up her lotus anatomy, and transmits to her the frequencies that he needs to get his DNA open so he can get the rest of himself in with himself. So it's this interesting, balance. It's built on trust and that kind of thing. And it's just a fascinating process. For a while it can be really strange because you end up with the female side holding all this frequency that belongs to the Aden, and having to kind of stream it over, there you go, and it literally just or you get really electrical and it's not really pleasant. but you stream it to the person, your Aden, and those frequencies progressively stimulate the lotus seeds, so it opens up his own, lotus anatomy. And then once the quantums balance out, he gets the rest of himself in the body, and they balance out. She's not holding extra frequency for him to wake him up because, he's awake now. And she's going to get the rest of her 33% into body because she left 33% of her that's going back and forth too. And he can get the rest of him in body. And they each leave 1% back in the deity planes, so they each bring in 99% of their quantum. And that's when they can do the 2 become 3 become 1 frequency exchange, where they literally can anchor the power of the Christ star that they are, and for running gates and all of those kind of things. So it's a kind of unique format for incarnating, and it's like what femmes do because of the quantum they're dealing with, because of the power of the frequencies of the plasmas. It's much more powerful than a regular cycle would be if you weren't coming from the core density. So it has to be done very carefully as far as not overwhelming the system you're incarnating into, or overwhelming your own body that you're into. I mean, if you tried to come in with like 99% of your self in body, you would blow the body pattern apart before it came out of the womb down here, that kind of thing. So there was a mess up with when it went bad with the white dragon first falls. When it went bad, it went really, really bad. Because what happened, I think it was the Borgia that went after them, because they had been fallen for ages before that. And they sent in female Faitali right when the Aden should have been beginning their activation of their lotus systems, but they were still on the light body level. And the Faitali females of the Borgia would latch on with their distorted lotus anatomy and reverse the codes of the Aden and literally take over the body and trap the Aden level of the consciousness within it, which meant the other part, the part that's like, it's almost like it just takes longer to incarnate when you have this much energy to bring into a body, but it's like somebody stopped your incarnation right in the middle of it, where you couldn't get the rest of you in body. So the Aden ends up stuck, or the Aden ends up stuck and unaware and getting taken over and progressively possessed by the thing that, the fatal that was in the fatali that was sent after him. And the part of himself that's trying to get in no longer has a body to get into, and a part of his own self is trapped in there. So it causes a mess for everyone. And it was funny when they were starting to tell me about this information. It said a little poem, and it was, how did it go? If a Yoshi falls, crisis for all. If an Aden succumbs, crisis for one. Because the Yoshi, with the Christ star line open, she carries a whole host shield with her. So there's a bunch of people that are actually connected to her shield and that open Christ star line that she's intended to bring out. So if she falls, they all fall with her, and that kind of thing. If the Aden falls before the rest of himself, and the rest of himself that's with him but not online yet consciously, on this level, that's called the Yaden. So that's the deity level of his consciousness. If the Yaden loses his Aden, the Aden is 33% quantum. It won't take the entire being down. So it's considered the expendable quantum if necessary. Not that it's not that, and it's expendable not like tissues, not like who cares. It's not like that at all. It's that, well, if you have one that has 66%, and if that 66% goes down, it's not only going to take out the host shield that's carrying, but it's going to take a critical mass of quantum out of the Christ star that could damage the Christ star itself, where it can't make a Christ star fall unless it comes fully out into the matrix. But I think it can make it step closer to being pulled out into the matrix, where it might have ascended, but now it's out in the externals again. So that's why they had the little poem about, if a Yoshi falls, crisis for all. Well, back in the time when the White Dragon first fall thing occurred, there was a huge quantum of Aden that were taken over, and it was through trickery. It was through the trickery of the femme fatales from the Borgia crew. And there was a bunch of the Yoshi, like totally devastated, of course, right? Like, my other half, Some of them decided, like, they don't have to follow. If the Aden falls, the Yoshi don't have to, but a bunch of them chose to because it would keep the codes together. So they could still, if they kind of hung out with them and tracked them in the matrix, they could still potentially bring them home. And there's a whole bunch of them this time around that are coming home that went through that. So they're finally going to get their, their Adens and their Yadens are going to get together and they're going to become Yodens like they're supposed to. Yeah. Yeah, and it was hard for like both sides because like it's hard to be the Yoshi side while you're watching what can feel like, and I'm talking from other lifetimes, not this one, because so far so good, it's really peaceful. Thank goodness. But in other lifetimes, I have little bits of memory. It's like you have like this like warrior dude that's running around and like has no interest whatsoever in like spiritual stuff or any of that because he's not awake yet, right? And you're supposed to like, you kind of feel like the mom or something. And a lot of relationships have those, like where it doesn't matter how old who is, but you end up with the female ending up being the mom to the person who's supposed to be the spouse. That pattern comes from that distortion that happened with the fall of some of those Aden, where it's like, hello, yeah. I'm really lucky because we're both grown-ups and it's really nice. So I'm happy this time that it's not one of those. But it must be hard too. Well, people need to check out. Oh, okay. All right. I'm being asked to please break in a few minutes because some people need to check out. So we can do a short break there for that. Anyway, we can talk more about Yoshis and Adens and horror stories later. Yeah, it was pretty bad though. I have a memory of it. I think I must have done that trip at one point where I went in with whoever at the time was, my Aden. And I remember whoever he was really tried to torture me, right? Because once they get twisted, they're thinking like fatale because they got possessed by one, basically. So it was that kind of thing. But this time it seems very, very good for everyone because the fact that the first full Tantra couple was activated in a way that was peaceful. There wasn't any possession involved. The Aden's Christ-star line was opened easily and is already there, and he's safe. And that wave will be what transmits. So the frequency that will transmit on the wave that will assist in everyone's awakening will also send a protection for the Aden in regard to that. And it has to do with something called the Aden keys. There are certain frequency keys that actually block the what's called fatally swarming, where once the lotus's light body levels start to activate, it's like they come out of the woodwork and want to be with you, right? And like kind of track you and things. There's something called the Aden keys that once it's activated, it stops that process where it almost like masks the scent, so fatally can't sniff out when an Aden is having his lotuses activate, so he has a chance to have them activate the normal way. Yeah, that kind of thing. So that, all of those good things will be transmitted on the wave that goes out through the shield. So that will be an encryption that will help clear a lot of the past karma stuff that is on this, because there are times when lots of us have come in and dealt with these dramas elsewhere, including the period where the white dragon first falls. So it's really good that it activated on a very good note this time, where it's not been highly traumatic. We didn't the Aden, he's fine and didn't get possessed and gone and that kind of thing. So this is really good for every Aden on the planet, because that will be the core encryption that rides on the wave that transmits through the Aden's body. Because the Aden and the Yoshi will transmit. By existing, they are transmitters from the Christ star. And if they get twisted and they get intercepted by a negative side, they will transmit the negative on the highest level possible, because they're like amplifiers. So we've activated the whole set on the positive this time, and it's about time. So I think I'll break on that note because they want to check out. We'll be back in like 15.